Hi, my name is Terry Person, and you are about to begin part 8 of my series Make Money Writing, a Freelancer's Intensive, which I'll explain the key elements of how to make a living freelancing. For this episode, though, I'm going to cover fiction and poetry instead of nonfiction. Up till now, I've mostly covered nonfiction because that's where most of the finances are going to be coming from, but you never know what's going to happen in your career. So, yes, it's more difficult to make a living writing fiction, but you can supplement your income with fiction or poetry until you write that next great American novel or that Pulitzer Prize winning collection. So, let's get started. Applying nonfiction rules to fiction and poetry. I've got several. I'm going to go through all the sections that I did for the videos up to now. So, part 1 was about what do you know? And so, what we're going to cover on this, instead of what do you know, it kind of becomes what do you love? So, do you love reading romance or erotica fiction? Do you like solving crimes, writing thrilling adventures, speculative fiction like fantasy or science fiction? Social, cultural, environmental concerns. What is it that you're writing about? What is it that you're really passionate about and you want to write fiction and or poetry? Is it political? So get to know who you are and what your interests are, and this is where you start with your fiction and poetry, no different than nonfiction. Um, the number 2, my second video was about popular and trade magazines. This kind of becomes the difference between university presses, small presses, and popular magazines. Not a lot of popular magazines are publishing fiction and poetry, but there still are some out there. And those are very important. So find which ones those are. They're easy enough to find online. And that's your market. So note that some magazines have more clout than other ones. Poetry magazine's been around for a long time. They're part of association. So that's probably a pretty big magazine. Plowshares is a great magazine. Some of the university presses tend to be often thought of as the better magazines, and some of them really are. And other ones are run by their undergraduates sometimes, or aren't looked at as being as important. You'll find this out as you start to get into the market. Small presses, that's these people who are individuals who love poetry or love fiction, who are out there putting magazines out on their own. A lot of these people are doing it on their own dollar, so to speak. Even if it's online and it's less expensive, it's their time. They usually have smaller circulations, unlike the larger circulations of the popular magazines or university presses, but they're still very viable places to get published. So there you have it. The third video was on the anatomy of a magazine. So this doesn't change a whole lot. So if you don't remember the pieces of a magazine or how to find the editors' names and all that kind of stuff, go back and look at the video number 3, and you'll get all that kind of information. I can't go through that in this short period of time. That's a whole video. And this is just a reminder that you can apply all the things you've learned till now directly to fiction and poetry. So now is the, let's see, part 4 was about basic article types. And this kind of becomes story and poetry types, if you will. And I'm going to say that what we're talking about, besides just genres, as we mentioned above or before about romance and thriller and sci-fi, this is also about the designations of things. Like long short stories are up to 7,000 words. Short stories are typically under 5,000 words. Flash fiction, although it's debatable, but normally it's under 1,000 words. Some magazines specify under 500 or even fewer than that. And the same thing goes for poetry. There are traditional poems, there are free verse poems, and various lengths. Some magazines like very short poems. They're just haiku or some of those types of poetry. And there are also magazines that like the longer poems, or magazines that like longer fiction, uh, fantasy and science fiction or analog science fiction magazines. They look at novelettes, which are about 10 or 12,000 words, novellas at 10,000 to about 45,000 words, and then book lengths anywhere over that up to hundreds of thousands of words. So basic article types turns into story and poetry types, and this gives you an idea of what to do with different sizes, what they're called, and how to get them into the magazines. Part 5 was the key article components. This becomes, for fiction, it becomes learning how to write, basically. It's not about the components themselves, but to make sure that you have all the pieces of a good fiction into the work you're working on, whether it's flash fiction or a novel. So it's important to learn about character arcs, plot points, the hero's journey, milieu, character, all the other things that are necessary to make a story a good story. You know, how to really produce some quality work. And this is available on books and online and everything all over the place. I go to conferences regularly, so you can learn this information. With poetry, it's about understanding line endings, sound, metaphor, simile, and all these kinds of things also turn around and move into your fiction. So you're including all those elements in fiction as well. This is something that takes a lot of time, and hopefully I'll be doing some more videos on some of these subjects, so stay tuned. The 6th video that I had done that you've gone through was starting your freelance business, which now becomes just starting to publish in general. So it's the same story as before. Publish anywhere, even the smallest pamphlets or online sites for poetry or fiction are worthwhile, and to start your portfolio, if you will, to make sure that you have more and more things and that you grow into larger and larger magazines. So try the most obscure ones and tiny magazines first, and then work your way up. Or if you've been doing this for a while, start with Poetry Magazine or a big publisher. Everything counts. Everything counts when you're working to start your career as an author. Again, start right away as soon as you're publishing. Start that portfolio. Put things together for lists of links and print appearances, whatever you have. Create that for yourself so that you can show other people, other magazine editors. Get to know those editors. Ask for referrals. Write to them. Read their magazines. Let them know what you find that's interesting and what you liked and didn't like. This also gives you an idea of what the magazines print and what's important to those particular editors. And send in clean work, as always. The best work, spelling checked, edited work. Finally, the video you just saw before this one, the 7th video, was the 5 keys to getting published and staying published. This is exactly the same for fiction and poetry as it is for nonfiction articles that we were talking about. You just view that video, so you just viewed that video, so you probably remember. But the points are basically count for your work by setting goals, circulate your finished work, and stay organized. Conceptualize the whole thing as relationships, so make sure that you make a good impression up front, send them your best work, respond kindly to editors, whether you've been rejected or not, and continue to keep work flowing out so that you've always got something in the mail, so to speak. Create a community of equals, meet other writers where you can ask for help, you can stay in touch with them, you can share your successes, you can share where they might get published and vice versa. And then all these things lead us to what we've been wanting to do all along anyway, and that is live the life of the writer by staying focused, going to conferences and fairs, marketing your work, marketing yourself, and finally, just have fun. Enjoy what you're doing. If your career isn't fun, why do it? So that's it. Take your fiction and your poetry, apply it to everything you've already learned, and you'll do just fine. So rather than a PDF download of these particular points, since you have those all along the way, now's the time that I can offer you something very valuable, I think. I'm going to include a PDF download of my lists of magazines that take poetry, fiction, personal essay, and other nonfiction and artwork. Those downloads, those magazine downloads, can be found on my site under the Events tab. My site is terryperson.com. So that's it. Thank you for being with me this whole time. It's a lot of information. Hopefully you took it a little, 1 week at a time or something like that, and started to work on things slowly. And by now, hopefully you've got enough material out, and possibly even some publications, which would be great. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to contact me directly. And if there's another writing series that you'd like me to produce, let me know, and I will do that. So I appreciate it, and goodbye for now. Thanks.